Please take a seat. Good morning. Good to see everyone. Good to be back.
Good morning.
My name is Coleman Yoakum. I'm the Executive Director at Micah 6 Community, which is a ministry partner of St. James. I haven't been here in a while. I usually, Chris is always very generous to reserve one of the readings for me on your Christmas Eve service, and I've done that for a number of years, but it's been a while since I've been here. So good to be back. Good to see everyone. Earlier this morning, there was a calamity where I was carrying a bunch of things, which included my notes for today, and in my klutziness, I dropped all of those things, and my notes were among them, and that did not reappear before first service. And so 8 o'clock kind of got me to wing it, but then during coffee hour, they fell out of a book, and now I have my notes, which is great. I don't know that this will lead to this one being any better, but it at least gives me something to look at. So thanks for riding along with me. Like I said, my name is Coleman Yoakum. I'm the Executive Director at Micah 6 Community. We are a small organization that a number of years ago, almost 10 years ago now, me and a group of friends said we wanted to make a difference. We were moved and compelled by this example of Christ, of sort of releasing a lot of the privilege that he had coming to earth. As the message says, he moved into the neighborhood, and we were motivated to do that as well. And so we wanted to move into a neighborhood where we could make a difference. And so we looked for neighborhoods that had high crime, high foreclosure, high unemployment. And if you ever want to freak out your mom, tell her that's where you want to move. And so we looked in a number of places, explored a number of cities, ultimately had this sort of confirmation moment. While we were looking at a house in Pontiac, we were there with our real estate agent who didn't even want to show us houses in Pontiac. She says, there's so many better places to live. I don't know why you would want to live here. And we said, you don't get it. That's okay. And so she's showing us a house. And I always say, if you are showing houses in Pontiac, Michigan in 2012, you are polishing turds. She was great at it. She would walk in and she'd be like, you see this hole? I just watched a show on HGTV. This could be a very attractive skylight. She said, it's not on the listing, but you might notice this house comes with cats. I hope you like cats. And we do know that this house is livable because it seems like someone might be living here. And so we were in one of these houses, and we're sort of looking at everything, and somebody walked in behind us off the street and said, are you thinking about buying this house? And I said, yes. And he says, you need to know, someone got beat up on this porch a couple weeks ago. And that's the kind of neighborhood you're in right now. And my real estate agent was like, well, there goes my sale. And my cute little girlfriend at the time was like, get me out of here. And I said, perfect. This is exactly where we need to be. This is the kind of place that needs good neighbors and needs people that care about it. And so I called my group of friends from college and said, hey, let's just do this for real. Let's move in somewhere and do it. I bought a house in Michigan. Let's go. And I had a group of friends who left what they were doing, came and joined me. And this upcoming August will be 10 years ago, which happened very fast. And we've done some really great things. When we moved in, we found out turnover in my neighborhood was every 5 months. That somebody would move in, have a conflict with someone, move out. They had a lot of folks on housing vouchers that could transfer those pretty easily to anybody else that was taking Section 8. We found out, we knew what our crime rate was, and it was pretty high. And so we have set about doing a number of things to introduce neighbors to each other, because we figured out crime can only exist, or you can only get away with so much when people don't know who you are. And that when turnover in my neighborhood is every 5 months, the neighborhood's pretty anonymous. You're not taking time to invest in the community, get to know neighbors, get to know people. And so we started introducing people to each other and creating bonds and creating relationships in our neighborhood. And since we started, violent crime in my neighborhood is down 40%. When we moved in, my neighborhood was a food desert. So if you are, looking at the USDA map of what percentage of people don't have cars, who has access to quality transportation, and how close the nearest place that sells real groceries or real vegetables is, we were a very red neighborhood. The USDA scores food deserts a lot like the terror level. So we were a red. Then we started planting gardens and doing that sort of thing. Then we went down to an orange. We opened a vegetable store in my neighborhood in 2017, hired exclusively people who live in our community, so to be able to create jobs for people who live in my neighborhood. Now we are a yellow, and we have plans for expanding that and turning it into a full grocery in the next couple of years, and that means we will be off the list of food deserts completely, which is very exciting. This past 2 years has been rough, particularly for people in my neighborhood. That low-income people, that folks with pre-existing conditions, a lot of health-related issues that have to do with food and access to food, people who were sort of in those spaces felt the effects harder and longer than most of the folks that we know through the pandemic. And I'm going to tell you about some things that we did during the pandemic that are really exciting, and then I'm going to tell you maybe the most important thing that we did in the past 2 years. Schools closed. Whenever the pandemic started, March of 2020, I had a newborn. I had a brand new kid. It was like a month old and hadn't done much yet. It's just kind of hanging out, but we were hopeful that it would start doing stuff soon. So when everything closed down, a lot of my neighbors who were in service industry work, who were in food work, who were in these sorts of things, they all got laid off of their jobs. But we started noticing very quickly that those folks were still going to need to buy groceries, but they weren't going to have income anymore. So, Arby's is not sending my friend Nell a check after they lay her off indefinitely because of the pandemic. And so we had a lot of needs that were coming up very quickly. So we immediately hired a bunch of our friends from the neighborhood who had been laid off of their other jobs, said, okay, great, you're hired, you work for Micah 6 or you work for Sprout. And then we really ramped up Sprout to be able to distribute as many groceries as possible to people who needed them. And so throughout the pandemic, we partnered up with agencies like OLSA, Community Housing Network, and the Time Bank, and a number of others, and said, if you've got clients that need help with groceries, send them to Sprout. And throughout the pandemic, we handed out 18,000 bags of free groceries to people in our community, which was really great. None of our neighbors had internet. And our kids definitely didn't have tablets or iPads. And so whenever school went virtual, places like my neighborhood had a really hard time adjusting or switching because they didn't have a lot of the technology they needed. But our houses had Wi-Fi, and so we just kicked our doors open and said, any kid who needs to come work on school during the day can come here. And we have tablets, and we have laptops, and we have iPads. You can get you hooked up, and we've got a couple people who are just going to be here hanging out, making sure that you're getting your schoolwork done, you're getting connected the way you need to, while their parents were waiting on connections and programs and things like that to get internet into their homes. We opened up our houses, and we had about 20 kids who would come every day and do virtual learning at our house. So they didn't get a lot of the setbacks that you hear about with a lot of kids in urban neighborhoods, because we were able to get them online really, really quickly, which was awesome. We still did kids camp during the summer. Our kids had nowhere to go, nothing to do, and so we still did kids camp in the summer. We shot off rockets, we grew food, we worked in our gardens, we did all that stuff, which was really, really cool. None of that stuff was the most important thing that we did. There were other things, we kept church going. So our neighbors are, like I said, some of the highest risk people. There are a lot of comorbidities and other issues and things like that that make their situation a lot more dire if they get COVID. And so we moved, luckily, because we have garden space and we can do outside, we moved all of our church outside. So during the warm months, we were able to meet in the garden. There was about a month there where we were shut down and not having church, but then we moved it to the garden. And it was really great standing up in front of our congregation. There was about 40 people or so on a Sunday night, and looking out and saying, there is not a person who's here right now who I haven't seen multiple times a week since the pandemic started. Whether it's through food, or whether we're doing wellness checks, or whether we're just stopping in to see them, or we see them on the street. That one of the great things about having a church for our community and for our neighbors is that we saw our neighbors all throughout sort of this time that we were not together. And then when we were back in the garden together, we got to look out and go, I've kept up with all these people. This isn't a sort of a homecoming moment for us, because we've all been together this entire time, which has been really cool. The most important thing that we did came this past August. Churches had started, and churches and office groups and things like that had started volunteering again, coming out, doing different things, sort of cautiously in groups, spread out, maybe with masks, maybe not. And so we had a group that was signed up to come out Saturday morning to work in the gardens with us. We were going to have a little neighborhood cookout. We were going to play soccer with kids, and we were going to have some volunteers in the garden. And so we woke up late Friday night to some noise in the neighborhood, which is not unusual. My neighborhood is pretty nocturnal. We did a census at one point and realized that the same number of people walked, drove, or rode a bike in front of my house at 2 o'clock in the afternoon as they did at 2 o'clock in the morning. My neighborhood's a pretty late neighborhood. Everybody's kind of out and about. When you don't work, you don't have jobs, you don't have anything to be up for in the morning, why would I, why not just stay up and party? So that's my neighborhood. And so noise in the street at night is not that interesting, but this was just different, just sounded different. Looked out the window, there was a fight going on, an altercation in the street. What had happened was a car was driving by, the folks in the car saw a guy that one of them had some beef or history with. They all jumped out, went to fight the guy. One guy had a knife, stabbed the guy multiple times. He fell on the ground, crawled up under a truck to get away from the folks who were stabbing him, and that's where he died. The police came, the paramedics pulled him out from under the truck, but he had already died at that point. They threw him in the ambulance and drove away. And this is just one of those things that happens in places like Pontiac. It's going to hit the news, it's going to get broadcast, it's going to be all over the internet, people are going to share it, they're going to be talking about whatever, and it just compounds the perception that people have of my city and of my neighborhood. And it is one of these moments that leads somebody on the street to go, I've had enough. I'm selling my house. I'm moving out. Or it's a story that just sort of permeates in the back of someone's mind, and so when somebody says, hey, what if we started this, or what if we moved our business to Pontiac? So I don't know, I just saw a story about somebody getting murdered there. Or it's the kind of thing that makes people want to stop investing. Stay out. Stay in their homes, not come outside, not whatever. This sort of thing happens in places like where I live all the time, and it really keeps the perception of the city low, and it keeps good people who want to invest their time, money, energy, and resources away. And that happened. That church called us Saturday morning and said, hey, we just saw the news, we're not coming. Another congregation called us later that week and said, hey, I think we're going to pull back our support. We just saw this story, and we feel that on some level, if we're supporting you financially and something bad happens to anybody on your team, then, we're somewhat responsible. So I think we're going to pull our support. And, this is the cycle that proves a lot of these fears and concerns, correct. And so the most important thing that we did, we got that call from that church, we're not coming. So we said, okay. And we got up, we went outside, and we rolled out our grill, and we started working in the garden, and we started playing soccer with kids, and we kept going. That people in my neighborhood are always waiting on folks to give up on places like my neighborhood. Is this going to be the thing that is going to force this person to leave, or get this person to quit, or get these resources to stop coming, or is this going to be the, and very really, is this the thing that's going to make Micah 6 go, okay, we're done? And I think my neighbors spend a lot of time waiting on the other shoe to drop in terms of our love and our support and our commitment and our care for that neighborhood. They're always waiting for us to give up. And the thing that we have to do, and the thing that is most important for us to do, is to keep demonstrating over and over and over again, we're never giving up. We're not going anywhere. We're here for the long haul. We're neighbors. We're committed to this neighborhood. That even when people who don't live here don't have that same level of commitment, we're not going anywhere. And it's important that we keep showing that posture and that we keep displaying that, because on some level that also communicates something about the God that we follow. That He's not giving up on us. That He's never going to give up on us. That we keep going. That Just like this verse from Samuel, that she keeps praying for a kid and she's going to keep going because she believes that God is faithful. And if we believe that God is that faithful, then we as his followers need to be that faithful also to whatever we're called to. Whether that's our family, or our neighborhood, or our job, we have to be as committed to it as God is committed to us. So we got up, we went and played soccer. People came over, checking on us. How are y'all doing? Are you doing okay? That was pretty scary. You know, like, yeah, are you, anything change? And always just kind of figure out, like, is anything changing? And we have to keep demonstrating over and over and over again that the answer is no. We only get to do that because we have partners who are also that committed to us. St. James is one of those partners that has been here almost from the beginning, leaning in, supporting, seeing news stories about things that go bad. I get phone calls from Chris, I get emails from Josh. Everything going okay? How are things? How can we help? How can we support? How can we jump in? How can we help you do what you're doing? We only get to do what we do and be that constant faithful presence because we have so many people behind us and so many congregations behind us who are also a constant and faithful presence. And this is one of those congregations. So I get really excited when I get the opportunity to come back and say thank you. That we're incredibly grateful that you are helping us do what we do, that you are helping us establish even deeper roots in the community and further our commitment to our neighborhood and to our people. Thank you so much to this congregation, your amazing leadership, people I love very much. Thank you all for also being the faithful presence that you are in the places that you are that faithful presence. Keep doing it. Have a great holiday season. Thank you all so much.
We'll see you at Christmas.
I'll be here at Christmas.